Hello, hello, hello. Man, Brian Tanner is right off the back with it, Mr. Rich. How are you?
What's happening? What's happening?
Tanner, man, look, man, let me take a little sip of my water. Mm, there we go. Over here sound like Cold Bear. Yeah, so he writes in the comments right off the bat, we all knew the outcome. And of course, that's pertaining to the Kyle
Damn.
Rittenhouse. But first and foremost, welcome back to Urban
Yes, we did.
Academia, their audience. I'm your host, Jay Zilla. With me, as usual, is my man, Chulo Rich. Except he's depriving us of that magnificent beard and that scowl that only, a true cool person could have, man. What's going on with the camera
I'm
this week?
I'm moisturizing it this week, man. I gotta moisturize.
Yeah, the voice. Every time I hear that now, I think of Wendy Williams. Like, shout out to her and her show. She
Oh
always was
man,
telling, look, black, white, everybody, they got to make sure you moisturize.
hey
Right?
man,
Make sure you have it on.
it's true. It's true.
Absolutely. So yeah, man. So getting started, of course, Mr. Tanner jumping right into it. Kyle Rittenhouse, the verdict was in, not guilty of all charges. Um, but kind of before we go through, the different points of that case, that trial, you were saying something before we went on air um, about perception. So let's go a little bit into that, if you will.
I mean, what I was saying was, you know, they're trying him as a kid, or they're treating him like a kid. You know what I mean? But as a kid, if I had showed up anywhere with an AR-15, and that's anywhere, they wasn't gonna treat me like no kid. You know, I got an adult weapon in my hand. You know what I mean?
Right.
So certain things, are situational. You know, but at the same time, there's another S word that continues to pop into play, but get no. I mean, it gets attention, but nothing gets done about it. Maybe nothing can be. I don't know. But the other word is systematic. It
Systematic.
seems to be done on purpose. Just let the shit slide. I believe
So,
I saw something earlier about a black guy that stole $50 uh, 20 or 30 years ago. That you know got released. Uh, after about 20 years, and on time served. I guess he didn't have any representation. Maybe nobody knew he was there. He didn't have any money to bond out, do anything, which that happens. It happens to a lot of guys. A lot of guys are sitting in jail for years, $325, you know, and nobody knows. Nobody checking up on them, or they haven't been in touch with people and they've gone to jail. Nobody know where they at. It's not like a free phone system and shit in there that just let you just.
that's interesting. It's you had a comment in here. I need more clarification on this comment there, sir or ma'am. So I get what you're saying. Like, we can look at a bunch of cases, and on the surface, they can look very, unbalanced, right? That documentary on Netflix about Khalif Browder. He was 16 years old, accused, not found to have done anything, but accused of stealing a backpack. And because in the state of New York, you have, I guess, legal responsibility, at the age of 16. So he had a prior arrest for joyriding with some friends in a bread truck. And because of the laws in New York, you have that responsibility at 16. Because it costs a certain amount, it becomes a felony. And so when it happens again, his bail was denied. At 16 years old, bail denied, and he was sent to Rikers while they decided basically what to do with him. Now, with all the paperwork and all the red tape and all that stuff, right? People slipping through the cracks. He didn't get his case, I guess, reviewed until about 3 or 4 years later. 16-year-old kid, Rikers. And he spent most of that time in solitary confinement under the guise for supposedly his protection. This kid gets out eventually because, of course, there's no evidence, and the witness who accused him of taking his backpack, changed his story a couple times and later, I guess, recanted. And, he's released, but because he was in Rikers for that long and whatever he was dealing with upon his release, he commits suicide.
And it wasn't just what he was dealing with upon his release, which that was a problem for him, because once you go to jail for so long, you live in jail. You learn to live in jail, and it's a different set of rules.
Right.
He wasn't a criminal before he went to jail. When he went to jail, he had to be one because he had to try to stay alive. So at this point, he's defending himself and attacking people based on trying to stay alive. Mentally, he went crazy. Not only do you have to defend yourself and stay alive, the prison he was in at the time, they referred to it as gladiator school. So, and it was just that, and he a kid, y'all outweigh me, you smarter than me, you've been here longer, you know the tricks of the trade, you clicked up, and I'm just in here pissed off, sad, because I'm not even supposed to be here. Right. Next thing you know, I got people attacking me. I got to keep you off my ass. I can't even worry about being sad no more. So all of that mixed in with now you just get released all of a sudden. Like, what the fuck? Who gonna do anything about all them times them niggas whooped my ass and I had to whoop them niggas' ass and all of the shit the police did to me, and nobody cared. The police, they showed the police beating the shit out of them several times. You know. All of those things, yeah, they're gonna weigh on you, and then you just let me out with these felonies and I can't get a job still. You let me out, you said, hey, it's all good, my bad, but I still got these felonies. Like, what the fuck, what I'm supposed to do?
Exactly. And it's one of those things that, I mean, well, it's laughable that this case, and we're talking about the Browder case, it happened May 14, 2010. The first deposition wasn't until December 5th, 2014. So this is someone, imagine, anybody out there, as I look towards the audience here, imagine you're accused of a crime and they send you to one of the toughest prisons in the world to wait to even get, a deposition. He got sent as a 16-year-old kid to Rikers Island, where he spent almost 3 years in solitary confinement because you saw, if you watch the documentary on Netflix, you see the abuse he suffers at the hands of prisoners and the police, sometimes at the same time, which is just beyond me. I could not imagine. I just really couldn't imagine. So, but as we like to do on this show, we like to widen the gaze a little bit, right? Broaden the horizons and look at the real issue, I think, which is one, mandatory minimum sentencing, and two, why is one rule one way in Florida or Alabama and different in Wisconsin? Now, we are always, you and I specifically, me, right, always looking at things and like, what happens if we take race out of it, right? Just take race out of it. And you got all this legislation stacked one way in a certain area and a different way in another area. So even if you're saying, a lot of people are defending the Constitution and all this sort of thing, they're saying that, hey man, you can't look at it with race. Like, this wasn't racist or, a racist system, right? That just did this for XYZ. But if you really look at it, it only really affects disproportionately a certain group of people, black and brown people, right? As he writes in, we got another guy saying, Which I get you. I get what you're saying there in the comments. That's because the Constitution gives power to the states. But I'm sure you can agree.
Yeah, but the Constitution is the same one that, and we're taking race out of it. But the Constitution put it in there by adding us and saying that we were 3/5 a human being.
Right.
They made it a point to specifically speak on us.
So we got one
in
of our
the Constitution.
Hold on, we got one of our YouTubers writing in, and I agree with that. The Constitution does give rights, but there are plenty of amendments to the Constitution. Just like Mr. Rich said just now, right? There was one point that we weren't even considered a full person. And then once you realize that's an issue, you make amendments and you adjust with the times, which are always going to be something that's fluid, right? So I don't know. So this is one of those things that we really have to look at. If you pull back and look at just a little bit why things are the way they are, that's one way you can approach it. Or you can approach it as these things they're nonsensical, right? Mandatory minimums and things of that nature, while they could have been well-intentioned, I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt on that. It's not working, and it's hurting a lot of people. There's a guy in Florida, which is a red state. I'm over here arguing with the comments, man. I never thought I'd do this. Florida is a red state. Florida is a red state, and they have these mandatory minimums. If you look at the 10, 20, 25 law down there, that for a lot of things, that in other states and other places, they're misdemeanors. Here, they carry a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years, 20 years, or 25 to life. Like, I'm sure people who are being sensible can agree that, that's just not something that should be happening. That's why groups like FAMM, which are Families Against Mandatory Minimums, exist in the first place. Right?
Yeah, I feel you. On that level, I feel like common sense should be common sense, right? So, but common sense ain't common. We know that. But
absolutely,
I always think about shit, a little more basic. I like to break it down. The country's a big place, but at the end of the day, it's business. The United States of America is business. Everything inside of that is the United States of America business. So if I'm running a business with 6 floors, I'm not gonna have different rules for different floors. If you can't spit on the floor on the first floor, can't spit on the floor on the 6th floor. You know what I mean? There's not going to be some kind of gray area where it's like, yeah, it's cool if you spit on the floor here because the velocity of the wind, and no, fuck that. If I said don't do it, don't do it. You know what I mean? Or if I allow you to do this on the first floor, not gonna have it. Well, I guess maybe that's not true in a sense, because I have seen that happen. You know what I mean? But the way that the states are doing it is just totally like you're talking about on big issues. I'm talking about on small shit, Right. But on big issues all across the board, we're gonna follow the same rules,
Okay, makes sense. Look, we welcome to the show one of our long-time commentators, right? From the No Cap podcast. What's happening, Mr. Tanner? Oh, and before you get started, there's that link right there. If anybody wants to come in and comment, our Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook users, just click that link.
No cap is like everybody say that about, but everybody that say that got a hat on. I don't understand. Never seen a nigga say it without a hat on.
No cap. Everybody got a hat on, even though it's... Look, hey, Tanner had to break that down for me. Look, I'm old and kind of on the outskirts.
Yeah.
Like,
Most definitely.
There's no cap. Yeah. But yeah, so for any of our users, there's the link right there. Feel free to click it, comment, and
man. Anybody want to conversate, man? Click that link. Want to argue? Click that link. Want to give praises? Click that link.
Especially, what is it? Junk Life Ninja. Come on, Junk Life Ninja. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Mr. Tanner, welcome to the show. What's happening?
Appreciate it, fellas. How y'all doing this afternoon?
Man, pretty good.
Going all right, brother.
We're talking the Rittenhouse verdict and some connectors, and then also trying to pull back and look at it as a scope to try to see if we can get to what the real issues are.
Are you surprised?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't think any of us
Didn't
honestly
think
should
so.
be surprised in what's going on, man. Nobody should. And it's hard. It's hard to take race out of it. We would all like to take race out of any situation that this happens where two people lost their lives. But it's hard to take race out of because we keep seeing this over and over and over again. I mean, it.
Absolutely.
I've been talking to a lot of people that I consider family and friends and people that I consider real close to me that I've known for years on years. And some of them are white, some black, some brown, some Asian. It doesn't matter, man. But I mean, you got to look at it from the grand scheme and all aspects of what's been going on, man. This kid was 17, 16. Well, he was 17 years old when this happened. Okay, he's 18 years old now. Now, from what I've read, from what I've seen from watching the trial myself, his dad lived in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Okay, the firearm was not his, but there's no law in that state where you can be gifted a AR-15. Okay, take all that into context right now. Okay, he goes to basically protect his father's establishment where his father worked, or that area entitled 21 miles from where his house was.
Mhm.
It's hard to say that if me, you, or anybody else was in that same position, would we even went to trial? Would we have been able to do what he done and walk directly past the police and go home and then turn yourself in later on at a particular time? Or would the outcome have been completely different?
Let's not even ask that question because we would have been kids, right? Would your
Exactly.
mama and your daddy, given them being in the same situation, sent your little black ass down there with an AR-15?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Hell no. Not unless
Absolutely
they were
not.
planning on getting rid of me. Like, we're gonna get we're gonna get rid of this nigga. We don't like him anyway. Like that's what it looked like to me. But what did you think was gonna happen?
But we
Yeah,
talked
right.
about that. We talked about that before, right? The idea that how the parent felt comfortable dropping you off in that environment with a weapon. That to me speaks volumes in how much training he received. He probably knew parts, bits and pieces of the law. Like if you think about one of the biggest things about this case is the two charges that got dismissed. Right, him being a minor, which is like a $200 misdemeanor fine. Right, the prosecution wasn't prepared, so that was easily dropped. The next thing was that in Wisconsin, right, different than New York or Florida, in Wisconsin, what happens is if you're 17 or under, you don't have any legal responsibilities when it comes to certain things as per their statutes. Okay, so what ends up happening there is because he has a long barrel, and I love court in this sense that you have to be very careful with your wording, right? It's all about the letter of the law, not whether you right or wrong or guilty or innocent, but what you can prove, sort of thing, right? Through the language of court. And one of the things they said was the AR-15 style rifle, which I don't know why they worded it that way, but I'm sure it has something to do with it. The other detail is that it was a long barrel versus a short barrel. If it was a short barrel, he then gets tried as an adult, and then all of those things come into play. But because it's a long barrel, now he falls under the 17 and under law, and that gets dismissed. So that's that little detail, right? Mom dropped him off. He knew what style to carry. He knew how to carry it. He knew that he couldn't just spray and pray at the crowd, right?
I don't hear the letter of the law. I hear the undertones. I hear the what's in between there. All right. So yeah, white folks hunt a lot. They've been hunting for years. And we don't do that much. So we don't know a lot about it, which guns to take, none of that. When we do buy guns, we buy guns that are knocking nigga ass off because that's what we buy them for.
Yeah.
Now, they have these guns that they know will knock a nigga ass off, but it's specifically and technically and by letter of the law used for hunting. So that's what this long barrel AR is representing. And this whole culture of NRA members and shit like that. But the second you knock the nose off of it and it's shorter, now you a nigga walking around wielding this chopper, you know, that you shouldn't have. You know, like these motherfuckers is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a
So
fact.
then it becomes incumbent upon making sure that we know those rules, we know those laws, we receive that training. Like shout out to Still Motivated down there in Colombia. Like that is absolutely necessary. Like even if you know, and that's more semantics. Yeah, that's more semantics. Me saying take race out of it, right? Because what they claim to charge us on and jail us and shoot us for is by how the laws are written. Like all the way back to Trayvon Martin, like how that standing your ground law is written. I knew right away, well, he's gonna get off for that because it only when you're in court, it can only go by the letter of the law. And some are better at manipulating that than others because they have the resources and education. And that's what I'm trying to get down to is people paying attention to that detail
so
beyond the racism. Sorry, go ahead, Rich.
Just to refresh my brain, man. What was the initial action? Just to refresh my brain, the initial action that caused him to shoot.
Wait, are we talking about the Trayvon Martin case, or are we talking about Rittenhouse?
No, definitely not. That was the initial action that caused him to shoot was racism. What was the initial action that caused Kyle Rittenhouse to shoot?
According to him, I believe the first person came after him with a skating board. Right? If you see him walking through the crowd,
skateboard.
Yeah.
And so justification. So it doesn't matter what you're attacking me with if I'm holding an AR-15. I can shoot you if I feel like you're attacking me with anything, even if it's like a Bible or something.
Right. So, and that's an interesting way to put it, because if you think about that, how it's worded, how their statutes are worded, is a reasonable amount of fear for your life. It doesn't. In some states, it does have this sort of level of aggression, right? If you come after me, Rich, with a butter knife, I can't come after you with a handgun, right? It has to be some level, some even level of
That's what I'm thinking,
right? But remember, that sounds like common sense. That sounds like something that makes sense, but that's not how the laws are written. That's why so many police officers get off, because there's it's a very, I don't want to say arbitrary, but it's a very broad.
It's muddy waters.
Yeah, it's muddy definitely waters. That's what you call bullshit. It's definitely muddy waters. It's really
muddy waters, man. But what trips me out is they had all this video of everything during the case and everything. We still don't know to this day what happened before he was attacked by this guy with the skateboard or the other individual. Now there's claims and everything that comes out that somebody had a gun pointed at him first, and that's why he felt threatened for his life and he shot and everything like that. But there's no video of that. Thus, that's just per se word of mouth. But either way you look at it, man, this is a 17-year-old kid that had no business being there in the first place. The first person that they should have been talking to was the parent that dropped him off. Why is she not being talked to at all about putting your child out there in harm's way? What job was he? He's not Batman. He ain't Robin. He ain't Tony Stark. He had no business being there in the first place.
That's all I can go back to.
I mean,
I can't think of too much of it. And why the fuck were you there, kid?
Exactly.
And why did your mama let you? Why did your mama let you stay? Your parents supposed to love your ass.
Supposed to.
I got a business, and I want my business protected. So the best plan I can come up with as a businessman and as a father is to take my son down there. Shit, he got a gun. He know how to shoot it. Nah, man, the fuck.
I mean, y'all know just as well as I used to go to Alpha Psi Gamma parties and all type of shit like that when I was younger. And
Alpha Psi Gamma, that's
bruh.
Back in the day.
I tell my pops, man, I want to go to the party. Who gonna be there? that's the first question he asked. Who gonna be there? And if I say one name that he didn't like, oh no, nigga, you not going. You're not going because I know what's gonna happen. You're not going.
And see, that's the difference in households. Nobody asked me who was gonna be at the party or none of that shit. You know, when it was time for me to go to the Alcacide Gamma parties, I just went. Nobody asked them about who was gonna be there.
Hell, y'all know just as well as I do. We come from Mule Town, son. You go down to Mule Day, it's a wrap. It's a wrap when it start getting dark outside. It's time to leave.
Well, sometimes before that, I remember being on crutches, right? And I remember we used to always, get a little hotel outside of town, right? But here's what happened. I was on crutches, and my mom was giving this big speech about we can't be afraid of our own people. We got to support each other and all this stuff. And literally a shooting happened while I'm on crutches, last meal day I've ever attended, So it's I get the overall arching theme, right? And what we're talking about is what makes sense to us, like we're the parents, why would they, right? And it's emotional, like this, there's no way that this person should have gotten away with doing that. But I'm want to focus more on why they got away. And it's very easy to just throw a blanket over it and say, well, because he's white. Well, okay, there's no fixing that because white people are always going to be white people. They're always going to exist. There's no hope in that.
Okay. Well, you said fear, right? And he was in fear, and that was fear. And just like you just said, Brian, Mule Day, nighttime, people leave, and this and that. That's all subjective. People leave based off subjective fear. For me, nighttime, Mule Day, the party finna pop off. It's like 8-9 spots. It's time to hit now. You know what I mean? Some people say it's time to go home, but I know it's like 8-9 spots. We about to have a good time.
Absolutely.
Just like fear. Fear is very subjective. You know what I mean? For somebody to say that they're afraid of, I go to friends' houses and they got dogs, any breed. Dog walk up on you. Some people get terrorized. Like, oh my God, no, it's a dog. It doesn't even matter what kind, big, small, anything. If it's a dog, they just lose their fucking mind. They're scared to death. Meanwhile, you got a kid or another adult walk in the room, 3 dogs run out and they don't flinch. So, how the fuck are we measuring fear?
Now, so I want to get to this comment here because I see Nick on. What up, Nick? So this idea that Manny Luna writes in with, we have laws that use subjective and not objective measures, and that's what you're talking about. Like fear is subjective, right?
But so anything that's subjective shouldn't be in a written down law.
Therein lies the problem. That's a fact. And that's where we need to have more conversations surrounding.
That's a fact.
Like Manny Luna writes back with ban guns at demonstration. Like, yeah, but there are also, subjectively speaking, right? There are also some situations where in certain states, in certain cities, you feel more at ease with a weapon, right? Maybe you've grown up with it, maybe you have proper training. So that's where that subjectiveness comes in.
Can I simplify subjectiveness real quick?
Talk your shit.
Okay. If I'm talking cash, your money, not anybody money, but your money, can I be subjective about how the fuck I give it back if I owe it to you?
Don't people do that all the time?
And then when they do that, isn't there a consequence? Even if it's just your ass is cut off?
Yeah.
There's a consequence.
Yeah.
So okay, you can't just subjectively do shit. Like it is or it isn't.
They do, Rich. They do. So the law is what it is until some group of people change it. And your idea
I'm pointing out a reason it should be changed.
Right. And that's why I want to get into some legislation talk, because if you think about it, as Neckbone joins us, we'll get to you. Look, I don't know you personally. I like calling you Neck, though. Is that okay?
Neckbone. Hey man, who give y'all these names, man?
Look, I'm already just, I feel comfortable enough to just call him Neck, man. If I had a friend named Neckbone, that's what I call him.
This nigga gotta eat a lot. I need a picture.
Bone, he said.
Neckbone.
So yeah, what you're talking about is it shouldn't be like that, and I agree. But But right now, a lot of people are just focused on this result, and because he's white, he got off. I'm upset. It's like, well, why did he get off? You ask why he was afraid. Look at the definition of aggression: hostile or violent behavior, right, or attitudes toward another. That's pretty broad, man. You could look at me wrong, Rich, and I've been in Detroit and spoke to somebody and got cussed out, right? Because they don't know me and they viewed me speaking, country dumb. I'm from the South, right? They view me speaking as a sign of disrespect or aggression. And so I was met with aggression. In which case I was like, okay, gotta recalibrate. I'm not from here. Let me just go on about my business. But these are the sort of things that we have to look closer at.
And number one, see, that's perception, right? That's not the reason that happens when you speak in Detroit. That shit happens because all them niggas is wolves. That's why it happens. And them niggas is wolves because that's the way they was raised, right? So when you live around wolves, when a wolf speak to you, you gotta speak back like you a wolf too, or that wolf gonna bite your ass. So you don't know who's really a wolf. So everybody just talks like that. They really don't mean shit. You know what I mean? Secondly, if Neckbone had been at that place with an AR-15 and somebody had approached him with a skateboard, I highly doubt he would have been in fear. He just don't look like he would have been afraid. See, I'm being subjective, but my bad. See, my bad. I can't look down at the moment. But I did notice. He said neck bone, and I'm looking at it. He got a big neck. That's got to be him. But if it's not, I know he's big enough to keep a motherfucker with a skateboard up off his ass. He wouldn't have been afraid and had to
maybe that's an
AR-15. It is, but am I right?
Whether or not, no, that's up to him. That's up to him whether or not he wants to take the chance that dude knows jujitsu. You know what I mean? The law
skateboard jujitsu. Okay,
hey man, I'm sure there's somebody out there who knows jujitsu.
Got some training.
Rides the skateboard, right? Nick,
okay, you're right.
What's your take on this Rittenhouse case?
If she had the guy approaching with a skateboard, I honestly think it's really shot.
Say that again now.
Hold on, yeah, we got some audio. Just hang on. Trying to
get it like with the circumstance that Kyle had, because the guy didn't just approach him with the skateboard. He hit Kyle with the skateboard twice before Kyle shot him. If you hit me in the head with a skateboard and I have a gun on me, I'm gonna shoot you with it.
Yeah. I feel you. I gotta agree with you. I can't go against you there. Now, what I want to ask you, and now you right on that. I can't even fucking fight you on that. What I'm gonna ask you is, as a father, business owner, whatever the situation was, would you drop your son off 16, 17 years old with an AR-15, and why or why not?
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people keep saying that, but his mom didn't drop him off at the protest. She dropped him off at a friend's house, which is where he picked up the AR-15 and went down with his friends.
Okay. Oh, that sounds like some illegal activity right there in itself.
Exactly. Especially
from a child, especially if you're a child, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm glad he brought that up. Okay, that brings more clarification to what we talking about.
Number one, you're not even where I told you to be.
Facts. And two, to piggyback off that, we're in a society where everybody has a damn phone now. So when she found out that he ain't where he's supposed to be, considering that area of all that nonsense going on at the particular time, you the parent. Your job is to go pick his ass up and bring his ass back to the house. So
I will say in her defense, I will say
it is the blame of his mother.
Hang on, Jim.
No, I can't do that. I can't do that. I will say in her defense, because she's a mother. Yeah, when I was 16 and I made a decision to go do something, my mama couldn't come stop me, especially if I had access to an AR-15. You understand? Ain't nobody who could just come and tell you what to do in that moment. The problem is there was no control initially, and that they gave him a command and that command was not followed. Somebody's supposed to follow up on that.
Okay, Bone.
Yeah.
Now,
If,
what,
if
what were you about to say?
No, I'm just saying that I think that a lot of what happened, a lot of that could be the blame can be put towards her mother, and because I'm not currently, but I'm a former militia member, and with all of that, and I totally get why they were there, but I still don't get why a 17-year-old was there with militia members. Because had a 17-year-old come to me and I was there, I would have told the 17-year-old to go home.
absolutely.
But that
And
makes
that's
that
fair
makes
enough.
you different than the rest, though, man. That makes your mentality way better than some of the rest.
And I
But I
think
think the more
maybe with the
information,
climate out there, maybe people weren't even looking at him worried about his age or thinking about the at the end of the day, he put himself in a bad situation, and that's what should have been addressed. You
But
know,
the problem is,
but he
these are
was
militia
charged with
members.
that.
If the militia members and stuff, they should know exactly what is going on with who's with them at all times. And
yeah,
when the original guy chased Kyle, and Kyle shot that guy, that situation never should have happened because somebody should have been with
yeah.
Right.
You
So he's
you
talking
saying
about it from
somebody
a
should have been with
what?
Cal?
Hang
Yeah.
on. Are you
Okay,
talking about
okay.
it from a malicious standpoint that you're never
Yeah.
just out there by yourself, right?
Never.
Sort of like
Never.
like an airplane pilot, a fighter pilot may have a wingman, sort of
That
thing.
makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we move forward, I want to get to this comment. Cal shot a pedophile in the junk, shot a thief in the arm, shot a wife beater in the head. That's 3 miracles. So now that's rough to hear, right?
That's a
But I
hell of a comment.
That's a crazy comment. That is a crazy comment.
But this is what I want to get out there because we look here at Urban Academia. Welcome to the show, by the way, Bone.
Yeah, welcome
Here
to
at
the
Urban
show, though.
Academia, we want to look at and examine all of it. Like, please join the show. And so here's what I want to say about that. Because you heard this a lot with the George Floyd thing. I mean, there was a white kid that got shot, because he answered the phone or answered the door aggressively, in their words, right? He swung the door open. It's late at night. He's got a gun in his hand, realizes it's the police. And as he's putting the gun down and putting his hands up, the police open fire on him, right? Because they saw a gun and they just reacted.
Right.
But the issue is, no matter the criminal, I don't care if it's Jeffrey Dahmer or whomever, the ideal is the police are supposed to apprehend and let them have their day in court.
Absolutely.
So, and not saying that those people were, because I mean, there's some information out about one of them who was released from a mental, the hospital, because I guess he tried to commit suicide. So there are a lot of things involved in this. But the issue we need to understand in this country, in America, you have the right to a trial. You're not allowed to get executed in the street, no matter the race, no matter where you come from. So that comment I find absolutely abominable, because it doesn't matter their crime. It's as tough as that is to say. I've got 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys. This is not me, this is not me standing up for pedophiles or thieves or any of that, wife beaters. The idea that is in this country, you're not supposed to take that into account, right? You're not supposed to be out there executing anybody, no matter what their crimes.
You're not supposed to take that into account, but at the same time, like with the whole Kyle incident, Kyle never shot anybody who didn't attack him. There were hundreds of people around. Only shot people who attacked him.
Okay, and you could be right? You could be absolutely right. You feel me? The problem is the sheer amount of times, right, that there's a situation of this caliber and there's race around it, and then it goes to trial, and it's somebody that's white that's on trial for shooting anybody black. And the expectations on the black side of the table for us are, he'll be home in a few months. We know that, and that's the heavy part for us. Is being able to call that. Like it's Golden State about to play fucking, the Hawks as well.
Well, see, like a lot of that has to do with media and stuff too, though. I mean, media is not going to put out a case. If I walk up and shoot you in cold blood, The media is not going to put that case out there. But if me and you get into a fight at Walmart and you grab a hammer and I shoot you, well, then it's going to make the media because it's controversial. And a lot of those times they'll do that kind of stuff. Like I think so. Like look at the Ahmaud Arbery case. Okay, Ahmaud Arbery case is not getting nearly the attention that Kyle Rittenhouse is getting. Kyle Rittenhouse never shot anybody who didn't attack him. Now the difference between him and the Ahmaud Arbery case is the Ahmaud Arbery case, whether Ahmaud Arbery was stealing stuff or whatever, that's irrelevant. What the relevance is those guys got in a pickup truck and followed him and then got out. And then when he tried to defend himself in that minute, they shot him. Those three guys are murderers.
That's a fact.
Well,
so it doesn't get attention.
Because those cases are going on.
A lot of people are not even talking about this. They're not even talking about their case right now. And that's crazy. That's a cold-blooded murder. And
it gets attention. It gets attention. It's the fact that we know the outcome already. So that we already said what we had to say about it. Nobody listened.
See, those guys are going to jail.
Nobody cares.
Kyle Rittenhouse is going home. Those guys are going to jail.
It's just a longer, more drawn-out process because it looked worse, so they have to let it cool down longer. You understand? Zimmerman was the same type of shit. He had no reason to do the shit he did.
Yep.
He's at home signing Skittle packets.
Yeah.
He should have to go to jail simply for signing Skittle packets. You're trying to incite some shit.
But
I mean, Zimmerman's a Cuban, though. He's not white.
Hang on there, Bone. Hang on. What you're talking about is emotional, right? There's nothing on the books, about signing. As horrific as it sounds. Right?
Touche.
So, real quick, gentlemen, before we move forward, I want to go back and apologize to Dirty Vermint, I think. Sorry if I got the name wrong. But he said it's a miracle because he didn't know that they were a pedo thief or a wife beater. He was simply defending himself. So I think what he's saying there, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the people that he happened to shoot, out of all those black people, right? Out of all those black people, three people
to be
he happened to shoot. Huh?
They happen to be criminals.
Yeah. Happen to be criminals. He's saying that's the miracle. So
right. I know what they're supposedly saying.
Which is also the fourth miracle, right?
Right.
Man. So this is one of those things, man. Look, these are one of these conversations, right? That it takes a lot of nuance. It takes a lot of people willing to sit down and have conversations like this with the Bone, Tanner, or Rich, or myself, right? And thank you all too in the comments there. But these are some strange times to where, like you mentioned, media, right? Rich, you and I had this conversation before about how there's a giant propaganda machine that's been going on forever, right? Back when the Romans were writing on scrolls and tablets, like there's always the people with the means and resources putting out a certain way of looking at things. Even the idea about the criminal, right? If you're deemed as a criminal, then yeah, if you get shot in the street, well, you shouldn't have been a criminal. Like that's in our movies, that's in our shows, that's in everything. Right. But there's no nuance in that. There's no nuance in that, and that's what we're missing. But if it bleeds, it leads, and that's why we find ourselves in these situations. They're just trying to maximize profits. Even with this vaccine stuff, you got the idea that CNN and a bunch of other places are sponsored by Pfizer, right? So it seems strange when they try to prop one thing up and then discredit everything else. It just reeks of shadiness, which really hurts us all as a country, right?
That's true.
Nuance is what we're missing.
We'll see what the media is doing now. There was actually a study done on the CIA used to have a media program called Project Mockingbird, where the CIA would hire people into journalism so that they could come in and manipulate the news to divide people. And it was a big strategy. And basically what they've done is made that happen. I mean, they have to make us hate each other based on race or political affiliation. And, like take like militias, for instance. I say Proud Boys, you guys think racist, right?
Well, from certain groups, right?
Yeah.
We had
Yeah.
a buddy of ours, who got to interview, I think, the Boogaloo Boys, right? A
And,
couple
and
of
it matters how you
representatives.
say it, brother. The way you said it, I didn't hear that. It really matters the way you say it.
And then so what they do though is they've gotta label this stuff a certain way because I was in the militia movement, and we're on the Southern Poverty Law Center as a white supremacist organization. All the guy that I take all of my orders from is a black man who lives in Massachusetts.
Right. Now, Lou, you have to tell us about that. I mean, the idea
Yeah,
that
because
you
wait,
had.
I'm about to. How common is it, and how many? Because we're black, we don't know, right? So,
Yeah.
How old are you? How old are you?
31.
Okay, is it common for white folks around your age to have done militia activity or training
Yeah.
and that type of shit? Ain't that
Yes.
a bitch?
And we from
Well, see, here's
Tennessee.
the
We
thing,
went
the
to Spring
media-
Hill. I know plenty of
That's
people.
what I'm getting at. The media has to tell you guys that we're a white supremacist organization. Because if they find out that we're not, and that you guys are just as welcome as I am, the government's in fucking trouble, man. Because shit'll have to start changing.
Well, see, they don't have to do that. Why don't y'all show up around where some of our kind are, right? And do
But they
some
have.
fucking
And see, but here's the thing. I showed up
Yeah.
in Indianapolis to a protest, right? And I come
Yeah.
up to try to talk to people. And of course,
That's
I'm
the
militia.
wrong time.
So I got hit with, I'm a white supremacist. I'm a
That's the
racist.
wrong time,
I'm this
wrong
and that.
climate.
Wait, hang on, Rich. Hang on, Rich, because I'm telling you, I've seen this myself to where they actually show up at town halls. They're quoting actual legislation issues. But here's my problem with certain militias. It's not really a national movement, a national brand, and y'all usually aren't on the same page. Just like what happens to us as black people, same thing happened to certain fashions of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys, because
Absolutely.
those names are co-opted and then used for other things, right?
Yeah.
Like back in the day, if you think about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, how the government themselves are calling them and making death threats and saying it's the other person, it's the other black dude in your group. That's who's doing it. Like
Yeah.
this is a very old game, right? I mean, if you want to take over a country, or take over anything, the first thing you do is you
separate shit.
disrupt
Right.
communication.
Disrupt. Yep.
Right. I mean, think about even just giving going into a little black history here. I mean, that movie Black Messiah, right? That's the same thing the Black Panthers were doing. At least that's what that organization started off doing. Before some bombings and things like that. It started off as like, we need to feed our community. We need to get some political capital that's not just black, because that's not going to work. We need black, brown, our other white brethren who are here fighting against, terrible wages and work, everything. Dr. Martin Luther King, after he got civil rights signed, he wasn't assassinated then. It was only when he was in Memphis to talk to some other union people about unionizing and demanding fair pay. Because at the time, you had one thing going up, right? Production. The other thing that was going up, cost of living. But then wages were starting to flatline, and it was starving the country from the inside out. As we see now that the middle class is vastly disappearing, if not gone, and the pay gaps between poverty and the super rich are bigger than ever, because we're top heavy, just like every other nation that came before us. Every single one. This is a tale old as time, but we don't know our history, world history, black history, any of that stuff. Because like he said, there's a very small amount of people who has all the resources, who owns all the TV stations and the everything. I mean, look at
That's
Facebook.
true.
They had this little issue. They changed their name. I hear more about the metaverse than I do about what they actually did.
That's true.
And they
talking
can
about
spin stuff too, like even the smallest of things, like this right here. The media tells you this stands for white power. It actually is 3%, which represents the militia organization, and that's what we've been using for years and years and years. but now they've got it labeled to where it's white supremacy, and we can't use it anymore.
Right.
Because now if we do, we're labeled as a white supremacy.
But things like that happen all the time.
They do the same thing to black people. When black people
Right,
throw their
things get
hands up, they tell them it's gangs. You know,
Yeah.
shut it down.
Right. But things get co-opted all the time. That's why these types of things have to be fluid, but you have to know it. We have to have a bone on the show with 3 black dudes breaking it down. Because for me growing up, if someone made that sign and I saw it, that means they got the chance to hit me. Like, that's the game that we played.
Yeah.
Y'all should all watch the movie Best Enemies. It's a great movie. I can't
check it out.
I can't remember the exact characters in the movie, man, but great fucking movie, and it's exactly what we need as communities. And if until we start doing things like that, we won't know enough about each other to work together, to do things, to be able to get things done together. Because I mean, our cultures are just different. You know what I mean? We do things different. We don't mean to be offensive to each other or anything like that. But and especially once you get the media in between, we don't know what the fuck's going on and what's not going on. You know, I know what's happening by my house and at my house. I don't know what's happening at yours unless I'm over there. You know what I mean? So yeah, if I throw up my fingers and twist them a certain way, it's not to offend you. Just like you telling me that it's not to offend me. But hell, I don't know that. It's like you don't know that. But you know, you throw labels on shit, and everybody talking is a part of what's cooking inside of a pot. You feel me? So relative to crabs cooking in a pot, you know, we're all reacting to the heat of what's in the pot. And none of us can figure out how to turn this fucking stove off. You know, but we're all being cooked, you know.
But you need somebody, but that's where the education comes in, right? We educate the next generation coming up, and those people make it out the pot, and then they can come back and educate us. But instead, it's been so baked and deeply ingrained into our American DNA that certain things just are, that it's hard for us to even accept someone who comes back to try to educate. It's hard to accept a Bone who's saying, here's where it starts. But Bone, what you keep doing is you keep talking, but you also understand the humanity behind that. It used to mean that, and I'm sorry, but they took it and made it something else. So then you need to change with that versus what you see a lot of people doing, and I'm sure you've seen this too, which is, no, it means this, and I'm not changing for anybody.
Yeah.
Like,
I still use it.
Like if I flip you a bird,
like that,
if I flip you a bird, I can't tell you it doesn't mean that anymore. Like now it means this.
Yeah.
No. It's gonna mean fuck you every time I flip you a bird. I don't care what generation or century it is. So
Like,
once you know that, you gotta chill out with it.
Yeah.
But if you take a peaceful symbol and then you put an ideology behind it, now all of a sudden that peaceful symbol becomes a swastika. Like,
right.
Things change. So there could be some people like, no, this means peace, and I'm not changing for anybody. There's an old movie that I watched.
You gotta adapt to your surroundings. What do your surroundings say?
But there's an old movie, Clerks, right, where he decides that, you know, I don't like that. I'm just gonna take a word back. Right, so he bravely goes on, right. So he bravely goes on and just saying whatever, and I'm not gonna apologize because I'm taking the word back. That's not how it works in reality, right? And I understand how you would say, "Hey, this is not what I mean by this," and I'm gonna continue to use it because this is what it really means. You can be the man or the men and women on that island, but you got to understand it's now been co-opted. It's now been changed. Woke, that term is now been changed. Black Lives Matter, that when that movement started had nothing to do with police brutality. It changed, and now it's weaponized to mean something else. That now it means you hate white people, and this is what happens in language, and that's why it's important to know it, understand it as best you can, and to change with the times and the environment.
Exactly. You know, there's certain people. You know, he say he not gonna change the symbolism in this. If I know it's offensive to you, my choice is to change it or prepare for whatever may come with you, right? So the word nigga was offensive, right?
Yeah.
Has it changed? It's still
not
offensive.
for me. I think it's still offensive. I mean,
right. It's no different than the other shit. There's a reason why you don't use it because it's offensive. So like if we're telling you this other shit is offensive, like let's just find other ways to do shit. Like, there's plenty other words to use other than nigga, and there's plenty other symbols to use other than this one that's confused with this other one. You know.
Right.
But
As Manny
the thing
Luna,
is, some people are willing to change and some people aren't.
Yeah,
And that's
which is
the crazy
fine.
thing
That's
about it.
what's so great about this frapping country. You know, there's many problems. Like, man, I love the house that I'm in. Right, I got a frapping faucet I need to get to fix. I got to work on my garage. There's a lot of problems I got to work on. But that doesn't mean I have to just look at it as a whole and just say, man, frap this house. This house sucks. I'm gonna burn it down. Right. Matter of fact, I'm gonna move. I'm done with it. I can't anymore. As Manny Luna writes in the comments, same thing applies to the Confederate flag. Which, I mean, that by itself, that's something I can't understand because, you know, you talk about.
I don't, on the Confederate flag as a white guy, okay, for me, to me, it's not a racist thing, but to me, it's also not an important symbol because whether they like it or not, I represent the American flag because we kicked their ass. And
Right.
so I'm not going to
American.
fly a second place flag.
But I'm saying, like, who is they?
Like, I'm not going to rock a second place trophy anywhere I go.
He's saying the North won against the South. Which, when the North wins against the South, it becomes, you know, the 13 colonies are all one United States of America.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
like,
why
if I slaughter a lot of your family members, and we all flying a flag, you know, and then you come back and kill the rest of mine, or enough that we say, all right, we don't want to do this no more. Would you still be cool with us flying that flag around that we've slaughtered all y'all people under?
No, and that's why I'm saying, like, I totally get why it's offensive to some
But you
people.
just told
I'm just saying,
me
to
yes
me
about
personally,
the.
it's not.
But I just asked you a direct question, and you told me no. I would think that that's fucked up. You know,
Yeah,
that's the exact
absolutely.
same thing I just said. That's the same thing that the
Yeah.
Confederate flag does. It was
Yeah.
bloodshed under this flag, right?
Yeah. And then the thing is,
You
I
can't-
won't fly one only because I'm from Indiana, and I know that we kicked their ass. So to me, it's irrelevant because it's the biggest second place trophy in the world.
Right, you lost.
Right,
Yeah.
I
almost
recognize
doesn't
that
count.
flag.
You know, when you
Right.
did not win, they don't. The person, when they retire a jersey, they hang. That's the best motherfucker. They don't say, now who was right behind him, and then put his jersey under his. They don't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we got the. I'm sorry, I'm on here reading comments. Oh yeah, man. I want to read y'all just a little glimpse at this, and I think this is what people are saying here, Bone. So you think about Michael Giles down there in Florida, right? Michael Giles is a veteran, and he is serving a 25-year sentence under Florida's 10-20 to life law, which is after he fired 2 shots in self-defense. There was a fight. He retrieved his legally owned weapon. Guy got the better of him. He shot him twice in the leg to stop him, but he stopped at that point. Like, these are very similar things to what Kyle Rittenhouse did.
Exactly.
Right? No one was seriously injured. And I think what's special about that case, man, you had the judge saying this is an abomination. There's no way that what I'm about to sentence you for should be something I sentence you for. But they took that out of the hands of the courts by making it a mandatory minimum sentence. The guy that he shot testified for him.
Wow.
So it's like me fighting Brian. He got the best of me. I shoot him. He comes to court. He's like, man, yeah, we were just in the fight. I don't think he was trying to kill me. He hit me twice, and then he backed off and even helped, to try to like stop the bleeding, all that kind of crap, right? So the victim, the judge, everybody. But then because of this law, it gets taken out of the hands of the courts, right? Unconstitutionally, you could say, and then put it in the hands of this mandatory minimum sentence. And so now this vet who had 0 priors, owned it legally, right, is now spending 25 to life in jail.
That's ridiculous.
Right.
Is
Not
he
attempted
Asian?
murder. Not murder. No.
Was
he what?
Is he Asian?
No. Wait, what?
Oh, I was just asking. Was he Asian? I didn't know. Was he Chinese,
No.
Russian, Indian,
This is not
Cuban?
African American.
All right.
Black dude.
All right.
But it took me a while to you see me like, wait, what? Is he Asian? So
That was a dry joke.
No, I got you. But there are also, I mean, there's just all sorts of issues that we need to be looking at. But just having an emotional response, like you said, the crabs in the pot, is not going to fix it. It's about getting this next generation ready to be able to walk in any room and be accepted just on the merit of, hey, this is another human.
Yeah,
that's where we need to start.
And you're right. And with that being said, look, I got another small point that just hit my brain, right? So, like being good and shit, right? You got to have something to hold you to that. Most people use church. If you don't, then think of whatever it is you use, right? But
Yeah.
if you don't use whatever that source is to recharge, you kind of lose what you're
You lose
after.
who
Like
you are.
you start getting off path, you start bullshitting, you start fucking off. You know what I mean?
Your energy, your wavelength is off.
Right. So if we as food in the pot, if we don't talk amongst each other enough, we forget that we're all food in the pot, and we just go back to boiling and doing what we got to do to get out the pot. And we all know it's fuck you when the water's that hot. So
Right.
we have to find a way to consistently. I refer back to that movie again, Best Enemies, because I believe that's the only way you're going to do it is have 30 white people, 30 black people. We sit down every Friday. We talk about shit, any and everything.
Right. I mean, even
it
with
ain't got to
policing,
last a super long time, but we got to do it.
Right. Even with policing, even knowing the origin of policing in this country, which was just a group of people who were meant to bring back escaped slaves, whether they were slaves or not, whether the war was fought and won and all that happened, right? So that's where we started. But just like we talked about with Bones Proud Boy symbol, right?
We
It's
start
also
with
about understanding
overseer
that
John.
police are necessary. Police are necessary now. So now it's about training. It's about making sure things like if you get caught, if you want to be so-called bad apples, which I love how they use one part of that phrase, because the whole phrase is one bad apple can spoil the bunch. And we're seeing that not just with police, but within different movements like BLM or Proud Boys, anything. Right? You got a couple of knuckleheads in there, they can spoil a whole movement if you let it. So the ideal is, what are you going to do in order to remove this bad apple and to try to incentivize better apples? And part of that, is if you get caught doing something wrong, you got to defend yourself. You got to pay your own way, right? Have them get personal insurance. You get afraid of somebody approaching you fast, which can be perceived as aggressively. I think all police officers should have a blue belt, right? Because you're not going to have that same reaction. You're going to know how to handle yourself hand to hand first without going straight to a lethal use of force.
Absolutely.
I also think that if you're going to be policing, whatever neighborhood you're going to be policing, you need to be out at community functions, town halls, and learning about that neighborhood from somebody there, i.e. the people. There are plenty of things we can do, and there are states that do that, and they have a huge change. They have a huge change as far as the numbers, right? The numbers kind of go down as far as police brutality and things like that. So there's a way to do it. So it's about supporting places like FAMM, which is Families Against Mandatory Minimums, right? There are groups out there, man. As we got Bone on here, he's saying like, hey, I'm trying to tell you, it's not a racist thing. Here's what it's really about. But if we just see,
and
have
I
our
think
perception,
he's right.
But
so as I said earlier, systematic, right? So you're not a part of that system that's doing that. You're just in the pot. But there is a system that's doing something. And that's who a lot of this has to be addressed to. So as we talked about organizations that can help, okay, if we Google right now the death rates in other countries, we'll notice that we have the highest death rates. Yeah. So we could go to any other country and ask them to train our police force, but we've yet to do that. And I'm just a regular nigga off the streets. I'm not a scholar or anything, but I got enough sense to know that myself. If I
With
got
what you
enough sense
said
to
there,
know
a lot
that,
of that could
somebody
be
in that
solved.
office knows that.
With what you said there, a lot of that could be solved with us coming together, because that's a lot of that goes back to the media propaganda machine. So like, let's say, the police shoot somebody or whatever, they have to put a specific race or a specific, political affiliation or whatever on that person to try to further divide us, right? So, like, where I live and it's a rural area, my local news shows me that Black Lives Matter is burning down buildings and they're setting dumpsters on fire and they're blocking traffic and they shot somebody and there's this many shootings in the city and it's
Right.
dangerous. Don't trust these people. And then where you're at, they tell you it's the racist cops. It's this and it's this and it's this and it's this. And they do that to keep us further divided. And if America had a way to
With
bring everybody together, then it would be a whole different thing, because then it wouldn't have to be Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter or whatever. It would be everybody standing together saying, hey, stop fucking killing our people, man. Just stop.
Right.
No matter what color they are, don't fucking kill them.
exactly. Which is why we need to stand side by side and have conversations as communities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we it's perception, Not only that, but what you explained was only piggybacking what I said. It's systematic. There's a
absolutely.
system in between you and I. In between you and I is a system. Just like right now, we're speaking to each other on a system. There's something in between us. And it's that way in day-to-day life. So until we're standing in front of each other, or at least the room is quiet enough, closed off enough as if now that we can hear each other, we don't know what the hell's going on either side.
But I think what he's saying, Rich, is that what he hears in his local news is vastly different than what I hear, and that's deliberate.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing.
Which is
like,
systematic.
The same thing. But then
I'm gonna grab a drink, guys. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks. So that means it becomes incumbent upon us, right, to make sure that we understand that the Murdochs, right, they own a bunch of local papers and a bunch of local stations, right? The idea that welcome back, Nick Bone. The idea that
That's
the
gangster.
Fox company, right? The people who
That's
own
gangster.
Fox, what they decided to do was they decided, hey, let's buy up all newspapers and local stations. And
don't shoot the messenger.
Right. Well, the idea from the lowest local radio all the way up to nationally branded or globally branded Fox, they're going to be all saying the same thing, and they're shaping the narrative. We all got to understand, people like Bone and myself, we all got to understand this, that they're all doing this and corralling us in these different stalls to try to maximize profit. What can I say to get these people so riled up that they stick around for this next Coca-Cola commercial? That's
we got to learn to shoot the messenger, man. We've been taught don't shoot the messenger. But that may not be true.
So like, everybody, it's constitutional. Whether they want to say it or not, the First Amendment not only protects free speech, but it also protects freedom of the press. And what we need is more independent journalists that can get out and get messages across to both sides of the aisle without having a political affiliation or an agenda involved in it at all, and just tell specifically the facts of what happened and stuff, and get more people to listen to independent news, because we have the internet. It's right here on YouTube. It's right here on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever, and get more independent people to speak about the things and stop watching these propaganda news networks.
You're absolutely right. And with that being said, like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Tune in to Urban Academia every Saturday night, 7:15.
If I go watch Fox News right now, they're going to tell me how Joe Biden split his Vatican, and Kamala Harris is nowhere to be found. And then I turn on CNN, and they're going to tell me Donald Trump's campaign, and he's a white supremacist, and he's old, don't know what the fuck he's doing. And at the end of the day, you got the people that are in certain communities If you go into White Castle or you go into Burger King or you turn on the local radio, they play CNN. And then if you go to the different communities and you go to their restaurants and this and that, they play Fox News. And it's one big propaganda machine, you know, and everybody's in on it. You know, the restaurants are in on it, the gas stations are in on it, the media, the government, and then all these people are in on it. And we need to bring back independent people, small business, small journalism, and, you know, and in the local papers. Because you know what happened over in Kenosha with Kyle Rittenhouse? I should have never fucking read about it. I live in Indiana. I should have never fucking heard about it. I should have heard about what happened here because that's what affects me. And, you know, and all these big, you know, national politicians and stuff don't have nearly as much of an effect on your life as local politicians do.
Absolutely. That's a good point. Very good point.
Well, a Bone from Rich and myself, thank you so much for joining us, man. You hang out in the back room if you want. Appreciate you for coming on, man. We really enjoyed your perspective.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Man, that's good. And I'm telling you, we need more of that. We need more of that. And like you said, first of all, we got to take care of self so we can then take care of our households. And then so doing our community, our city, our state, so on and so forth. So I really encourage people to, I'm going to put this in the, this link in the chat here. Hold on, let me make sure it goes out to everybody. All destinations, yes, yes, yes. So little things like this, right? That link that I just put in there. Yeah, what's up? Oh, okay. First Amendment only protects one type of speech. It only protects truths. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm over here reading out loud to myself. So if the media reports untruths, they need to be held accountable. And that's the issue with independent. You know, like he referenced the internet. They've muddied the waters so well that it's hard to figure out what, you know, outside of your own bias, what's actual truth, which is strange to say. But
and it's not just them. The news does it too. I just saw them do it this morning.
Well, yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. So the idea that they can report, like, there are so many Russian, you know, farms that are doing XYZ and where they are, right? Yeah, appreciate that, man. Junk Life Ninja. There's so many places where shoot, lost my true of thought. So many places, if you look, they can do all this in-depth reporting about how many Russian farms there are and all this sort of thing that's destroying our institution. But for some reason, you can't stop them. You can't get an algorithm together in order to block that sort of outside, you know, attack from a foreign country, right? That's incredible. So I feel like it serves a purpose up to a point, which allows people to kind of let these sort of things continue. But what I want to focus on, you know, besides ourselves, and we've talked about mental health on here and voting and physical health, and talk to somebody if you need to do so. But the next step to that is community. And what we want to start doing in these communities is look at sites like this that I just pinned up here. This is the FAMM site. And that stands for Families Against Max or Minimum. Families Against Mandatory Minimums. Whew. So if you check that out, they got all sorts of stories about how people are, you know, wrong. There are some rightfully convicted, some not convicted at all, right? But they're serving these ridiculous sentences because of these minimums. Right, 10-year minimums, 15 or 20-year minimums, and 25 to life. This is stuff that we can actually look at. It doesn't take much effort. You can just check it out, educate yourself, and, you know, donate if you can. Do whatever you can to be a part of that, even if it's just reading up on it and telling a friend. But as usual, Mr. Rich, before we get on up out of here, and thank you for everybody for joining us. Our main man Luna, Mr. Rich, last word.
Absolutely, man. Once again, thank everybody for tuning in. Sorry I couldn't be with you fully tonight, but I appreciate all the viewers. I appreciate all the people in the chat. Great conversation tonight. We got to do that more often as a community. And R.I.P. Tony Pierce. R.I.P. King Dolph. I'll let y'all next time.
For you. 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 Yeah. I can't wait no more. I'm in that vintage David Ruffin limelight, this staying.